So Lochana, welcome to the show.
Nice.
Yeah, nice to have you. You've always been commenting on my shows, and now you're finally on. So that's a great sign.
Thanks for having me.
So yeah, today we'll be discussing Sri Lanka's property market, because as we know, even in Colombo, there's quite an anomaly. Okay.
Yeah.
You have about only 10% of residential apartments compared to 9% of single family homes.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you look at Dubai it's 93% for
Yes.
apartments.
Yes.
Singapore is even higher, 95%.
It's all about vertical living. Yeah.
Then of course you have a situation now where I can understand why people aren't really investing that much into the property market.
Yes.
Interest rates are high.
Interest is high.
The ability for people to get debt to pay for these apartments is the issue today, right? On top of that, I don't know why we do not emulate the system, the property markets, or at least the success of the property market that you see in Dubai and Singapore, if we want to be the next Dubai and Singapore number one. Number two, there's a statistic that said that people spend 3 years of their lives in traffic.
Because
So for someone working in Colombo to not be one of those 10% owning an apartment, that means you are at risk of being one of those people that spend a lot of time driving to work and driving back home to work. And that affects someone's mood, that affects their ability to also contribute to society. And I just like to raise that point and ask you, can you explain what the current state of Sri Lanka's property market is in the way you see it?
current state is really good. It's improving a lot compared to the last year. We had a time where our mortgage rates were at like 25%, where nobody was able to purchase a property and mortgage it because you can't pay it off. So now that the interest rates have gone down to around 15%, 14%.
Well, it's still relatively high.
Relatively
That's
high,
what I was
yes.
trying to say.
Exactly,
So for them
relatively
to
high.
increase the amount of people buying, it's still not at that optimum rate.
Exactly.
For any person to be able to just to go and say, hey, I also want to buy this.
Yes.
I also want to lease this.
Yes. Yeah.
So
That's true, yeah.
so what you're saying is it's just marginally come down from what it was.
Yes. Now
Yeah.
the property market has picked up. We
Yeah.
see a lot of transactions happening, which is good. So the property market is doing really well at the moment because of the low interest rates compared to what it was last year, and people are getting used to these high interest rates as well. I think all over the world, the interest rates for mortgages and for other loans have gone up. So even in Australia, it's around 7%, whereas it used to be around 4% or so. In the US also, it has gone up. So everywhere around the world.
I heard that the Dubai is planning to add another 100,000 apartments, bro, in the near
100,000
future. So obviously there is a demand.
There is a
for
demand, yes.
people moving away from owning land
Yeah.
to finally owning a part of a floor in a building.
So yeah, because everyone wants to be in the city, right? Especially in Colombo, everyone wants to be within Colombo city limits because nobody wants to spend time in traffic, especially during the peak hours, during the office rush and all that. Because of that, people wanna stay in, they prefer to live in an apartment, and the facilities you get, the security you get, cannot be compared to a residential property. The apartment market was kind of slow during the crisis, during the economic crisis, but now again we see new apartments coming in. There's construction happening. So yeah, I'm excited for the
Cinnamon
future.
Life
Yes.
on my right just
Yes.
opened up.
Yeah.
They were saying that by April, when the casino does open,
Yes.
that they are expected to get something like 15 to 20,000 tourists
Yes.
a month.
A month. Yeah.
Because as you know, it's an 845 room juggernaut.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, there is a lot of development happening in Sri Lanka. There's a lot of high-end things coming up. So yeah, I'm excited for the future. I think we are heading in the right direction. I think the government also, our leaders also played a big role to bring us back to where it is now.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that was going to be my second question. We had an economic crisis. I'm happy that you said that we are now better than what we were. That is a sign that the economy is growing. As you know, the economy grew, I think, 4.5% last quarter, but we are still down from 2019 levels. So our GDP was, I think, 87 billion, and now it's 76. Maybe it's a little bit more now, but we are on the path to recover. That is why in that whole IMF program, they're saying, hey, you know, in the next 5 to 6 years, you will be in a good situation. So hopefully the property market will move vis-a-vis with that growth.
Yeah, the property market actually didn't get affected. When you look at it, it was only affected for like 3 months where there were no transactions happening. I mean, where there were transactions happening, but not as it used to be. Now it has bounced back. The high-end market is doing really well. Even during the economic crisis, the high-end market was doing pretty well. Only the middle class and lower middle class properties were affected.
That is the group that I was referring to that can still not afford that 15 PA.
Yes,
You know, per annum.
that's true. Yeah, but now people are, you know, they're also getting a bit of income compared to what they were getting last year. So they're getting used to these high interest rates and things like that. And there's movement in the market. There are transactions happening. People are buying and selling. It's still a buyer's market, but there's transactions happening, which is good.
Okay, that's really important. What would make someone want to buy a property in Sri Lanka today?
It's the high returns you get in Sri Lanka, and when it comes to the Sri Lankan property market, Sri Lankan property market has never really crashed compared to other countries. Now, if you take the US, when I was living there in 2008 during global financial crisis, apartments that were worth $500,000 went down to like $250,000 within two and a half years. So you pretty much lost half of what it was worth, and people were still paying that $500,000 mortgage payment. So things like that have never happened in Sri Lanka. So it's a very safe, risk-free investment. So that's something that people should know. In Sri Lanka, you don't really lose money when you invest in a property.
In layman terms, can you explain that how do you not technically lose money? Now you just said, okay, it went down for about 3 months.
Yes.
It technically never crashed.
It technically
So
crashed, yeah.
why is it a good investment for someone who's still not convinced?
Because now, let's say you invest 10 million rupees in a property or 100 million. Every year it has appreciated. Throughout our history, real estate market has appreciated every year. So it's a very risk-free investment compared to most of the other investments that's out there. So that's something that people should be aware of. Some properties, some areas appreciate a lot more compared to some other areas. So yeah, it's definitely a risk-free environment, a risk-free investment, especially when it comes to residential properties. They have the lowest risk, but it appreciates less. So depending on the property price, property type, the appreciation rates are also different, and the returns you get are also different. For example, if it's a residential property, if you're buying a property for 100 million rupees, your return would be somewhere around 3%. So if you rent it out for a year, you get around 3 million. 100 million investment, you get around 3 million return per year. But when it comes to commercial properties and apartments, it's around 6% return. So if you invest 100 million, you get around 6 million every year. But when it comes to agricultural properties, specialized properties like that, you get around 10% return. So if you invest 100 million, you get 10 million. And these are like pretty risk-free investment opportunities, right? So it's definitely one of the best, I think the best risk-free investment anyone could make.
Do you think the Sri Lankan market will be able to afford if someone today
Yes.
starts building something?
Yes.
Because obviously we still lack the amount of apartments
Yes.
in the Colombo city limits. I think Colombo
Yes.
has 1.2 million people,
Yeah.
1.345. Okay, let's
Something
leave it
around
at that.
Yeah.
What sort of projects do you think we need to focus on today to look after their needs, their housing needs,
Yes. Yeah. So now that the construction costs have gone down a bit compared to last year, I see development that's they have started developing these small, medium apartments. So it it takes us in the right direction, definitely. But then again, we have to also make sure that we don't have an oversupply of apartments. I believe there was a time where there was an oversupply, where people were not ready for this whole apartment living complex. So we have to make sure that it doesn't oversupply. For example, Singapore does that. Whenever a lot of developers are developing buildings, when they see a oversupply, they put a tax on apartment buying so that it sort of reduces the supply.
Lochana, now just to also draw into a lot of people lacking the knowledge at least where to start.
Yeah.
If you would be talking to a foreign investor today,
Yes.
can you explain to that foreign investor what is the A to Z of getting their investment to Sri Lanka, purchasing or building? What are the steps that need to be done to make this happen?
Yeah. So when it comes to foreign investments, there is a law where foreigners cannot purchase Sri Lankan properties except apartments above first floor they can purchase. But other than that, all the other properties, they need to find a Sri Lankan partner. They need to basically get the Sri Lankan partner to buy the property. And the foreign party and the Sri Lankan party would partner up and form a company, and then the Sri Lankan partner would lease the property to that company they have formed for 99 years. In our valuations also, we consider that as freehold, because if you have a property for 99 years, that's pretty much like freehold. So that's the way it is. Maybe those things can be modified, but it's working fine at the moment. That concept is working fine at the moment. We just have to make sure that both parties are fairly treated, the foreign party and the local party, and go on.
Yeah, actually, in my last podcast, we spoke about the justice system.
Yes.
And we said, how in order to protect investors, we need to also be able to look after them.
Of course,
we need to have the provisions in place to make sure that there is no, life isn't difficult for them when they are already trying their level best to bring money to Sri Lanka. And there was one more idea that I just remembered. It's tough to get details of lands in Sri Lanka. And even if you want to access government lands, if you want to promote a project to a foreign investor, there needs to be some sort of centralized structure where we can access it, or anyone can access it. Even if someone is bidding for a land, they should be able to know the point that they're in now. There should be some digitalization brought in to look at our property records, or at least the available opportunities in Sri Lanka, so that we could even strive to get even more investment than we currently
Of course. I think when you're buying a property, it's definitely better to consult a property consultant or a valuer or a lawyer. Because, for example, if we take beachfront properties, as you know, you need to keep a reservation before you start building permanent structures. So some properties are within the reservation. The entire property falls within the reservation. So there's no point buying a property like that, because you are not allowed to construct anything on it. So those things like that, normal people don't know about things like that, the regulations, and it changes from location to location. In some coastal areas, it's 10 meters, the reservation, some areas 35 meters, some areas 50 meters. So it depends from area to area. So you have to consult someone who knows the laws and regulations to advise them properly, and to know the exact value of the property. They can, the valuers are very professional in Sri Lanka, so they can consult a valuer when it comes to buying a property to see whether they are buying it at the right price. The valuer will check whether it falls within all the rules and regulations, reservations, things like that, and advise them properly. Yes.
And I hope people have learned quite a bit. I know I did.
Yes.
And
Yeah, it was a very productive
hopefully, it stays as you said it will.
Yes.
It will marginally improve. Thanks.
Of course.
Saying anything.
Thank you.
Thanks.